got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around.
All right, welcome back to Your Best True Story podcast, episode 3. FCAT, are you fired up to hear some new calls?
Yeah, man, that last one was great. I'm excited to hear what you got on deck.
Excellent. We've got 4 new calls, and just as a reminder to everyone how this works, I've already heard the calls. FCAT has not. Will be reacting in real time after hearing the call for the first time. And this is probably going to be released during the week that you are allowed to vote. If it's between February 1st and 7th, go to the Your Best True Story podcast to vote for your favorite story that was called in the month of January. And whoever gets the most votes is going to win $250. That's the way we're setting this up in each month. So vote for your favorite. We'll award the winner the $250 and invite them on the show for a more extensive interview about their story or any others they've got. Freddie, from last month, from the 2 episodes we put out in January, does any stick out in your mind as the one you hope wins that you would want to hear more about?
There's been a couple. There's been 2 or 3 that I've been like, that's got some potential. But I've washed my mind. I'm keeping my brain open to so I can get a real good glimpse at everything before I make a decision.
Yeah. Well, now, so the stories today, though, are going to be for the next month's contest because we're into February now. So,
I don't want to, influence anybody's decision.
I'm going to try and influence people to vote for Rydell from Hydell. Just so we can.
He was smooth.
More. Yeah, he was extremely smooth. He had it going on. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start jumping into the calls. And this first one is, well, his name is Billy, but I'm titling the story Billy or Butch.
Okay.
And he's calling from parts unknown. But Here we go.
So, I want to call in my story because no one else will believe me. I told my boys about it, but they just laughed at me, and it's kind of messing with my head. So over the past couple of months, I've been super depressed because my girlfriend, Anne, who I loved very much, she left me, took off with another dude, and so I've been really, really blue, down in the dumps since then. And a couple of days ago, what I did was take ketamine for the first time, which I don't know if you know what ketamine is, but it's some wacky shit like a horse tranquilizer or cat tranquilizer drug she had used before for her depression. And we had a vial of it, a black market vial of it. It was just sitting in the apartment, and I'd never thought injecting that stuff before, but I'd been so down in the dump, and not having done it before, I really didn't know the dosage, so I ended up injecting the entire thing. And then to show even how much stupider maybe I am, as I was sitting there in the dark in my living room waiting for it to magically cure my depression, nothing was happening. So I started to smoke some pretty strong weed that I had on hand and was sitting there smoking, and then the ketamine starts to kick in and everything starts to change. All my vision starts to diffuse and go to an even denser black. It seems like I'm floating in outer space, but with only this low static noise in my ears. And that seemed to go on for a very long time. I don't know how long, that I was just floating through outer space. And eventually, though, somebody starts to yell the name in the distance. They start to yell the name Butch. Butch, Butch, wake up. And my name's Billy. I'm not Butch. I've never been Butch. But somehow I knew it was, to me, that they were yelling. And so the next thing I know, I'm opening my eyes and I'm waking up in what seems like an entirely, well, it's an entirely different family, an entirely different house. And I'm a good bit younger. I'm not in my 20s. I'm a teen living in this house, waking up in a bedroom. And the thing is it didn't seem like a dream. It was too vivid. It was almost more real than this life. In that household, it was very dark and oppressive as far as the vibe. There was no father. There was just a mother who was addicted to pills, and she was my mother. And I had a sister, and she was really cool. But other than that, all I could think about was escaping and getting to college and getting away from that household and the darkness. And when I did go to college, that's how long I stayed in this world. I went to college and I met a girl named Cleo. And for the first time in my life, I felt like everything was perfect. And Cleo and I fell in love. She was beautiful. She was sweet. She was like everything that I thought Anne had been before in this lifetime. But Cleo stayed with me. We had a wonderful relationship, and I lived every single day of that with her, from getting married to the birth of our son and then our daughter a few years later, and watching them grow up and taking them to school and coming home in the car every day and seeing Cleo's smiling face at me and just being overwhelmed with a sense of love, and like everything was perfect and working as the way it was supposed to in the universe. And then in that scenario, like I lost all concept of any other life. It was a whole life I was living, and I loved it. It was perfect. And then one day, as I'm parking my car at work, I feel a pain in my chest, and that's the last thing I remember from that world. Then I was waking up back in this life on my sofa in my living room, the ketamine worn off, and it's bizarre because it wasn't a dream. It felt like I was there for years, and now it leaves me like the depression is a little bit better about Anne, because it was like I experienced something that was so much better than it had ever been with her, that I know it's possible. But then at the same time, it's extremely sad. My heart's like broken again, because that family that I had is gone. I don't even know if it was real, if it was imagination, if my kids ever existed. It's so you can see it's confusing, and I had to tell someone about it, and so there you go. I don't know what to make of it either.
That would suck.
Yeah. You have a whole life, like paying taxes, going to work, like, and then you just pop, like, imagine you just wake up tomorrow and you're some guy on a couch that did a bunch of, horse tranquilizer.
Yeah.
Like, I want everybody in the audience to just imagine you wake up tomorrow on a couch and you're that guy and you just did a bunch of horse tranquilizer.
Which could happen to any of us. Could happen. Like, I mean, maybe that's or maybe that's what death is. Like, you wake up and...
That's what I've been hearing, is that you just wake up from dream to dream. And then but what I've heard in this version is that, so if we consider this one the reality, when you wake up, this one was like a dream. Like, you have that perception where the one you're in then is the real. Yeah. And this is like a painting, or is like a movie, or, has a flatness to it where it's not, where you can feel sad, but it's not like, you're not like jumping from real to real. It kind of fades to the back.
Yeah. I dream a lot and have very vivid dreams when I sleep. And I've had definitely experiences thinking about ex-girlfriends or women that I loved of once they're gone, where you have a dream that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like painful to you like relive it again. The breakup or the missing, like it's bizarre how real that can be.
Yeah.
Because like you don't know it's a dream when you're experiencing it. So it's like they're back in your brain and all your emotions think everything's perfect.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and you're like, God damn, that I forgot how painful that was.
So what if it's a version of it where you just have one lens to look through and everything is all happening at the same time and you tune your lens to see the one that you're seeing? So that's all happening, the one with the girl, you know,
Yeah.
and for a second you're able to tune out of this lens and tune back into that one.
Yeah.
So it is just as real as this one. It's just the one you're giving your attention to is this version of it right now.
I guess that's the argument for like people that can lucid dream and kind of master that thing, that they can stay in that reality longer.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what with like, I've never done ketamine. The interesting thing is I have heard and looked up some information. What he's describing, I don't know if most people, when they go into quote unquote K-hole is what they call it.
Okay.
That it's that extensive where it's an entirely different lifetime, but it seems like it's fairly common enough that they've got a term for it, K-hole, where you can completely disassociate from this reality, I think. Sort of like DMT, but lasts way longer. And so that's kind of crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy if it is all just in your brain, or it's crazy as well if it's an alternate reality that you're going into.
Yeah. Well, I've seen in this version of this reality, I've been to beach bars where there's a bunch of people drinking on boats, but sometimes you get people that OD on what I heard and through hearsay was ketamine, but they're flopping around on the beach like a fish.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, I think it is a tranquilizer, like a vet tranquilizer.
But you could see because a crowd starts gathering and they're literally like half controlled, half not controlled. So they'll walk and then they'll just take their face and slam it into a chair and then stand up and then fall backwards. And then, but they're literally flopping around like a fish out of water. You know,
Sheesh.
And so I'm just trying to put the two together. Like, while that guy is doing that, is he like marrying the love of his life in his other dream? As
he's having a seizure.
While 200 people are on the beach, like laughing at him for, you know, shitting himself.
Could be.
Like,
yeah. Maybe and then when they bring him back, he's like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
In the other reality,
it didn't look too fun.
I didn't have a beer gut.
At least from my perspective, it didn't look too tranquil. But, you know, what am I to say?
I think I've told you, I won't go into the whole story now, but one of the biggest shroom trips I went on, the way it started, not completely ended, but the way I started to come down was I was looking into a mirror. And this is once I'd done several grams of shrooms and had been tripping for already an hour and a half or something. And I had some things happen that made me go to the mirror to look at myself.
Okay.
I watched my face start to melt.
Yep.
And then all I could see left of my face was my two eyes.
Ooh.
And looking into the mirror, they started to merge together into a third eye.
Oh.
One single eye.
Yep.
And I had the distinct sensation that if I had kept looking and allowed them to completely merge together, I was going to another world. That I was going to be in another universe, and I pussed out. I basically, right as they're about to come together, I was like, I can't do it. And backed away from the mirror and became like more, in control again. But it's like, there's something to, like, I've never done DMT, but what people describe with that is crazy. Just how, like,
hilarious.
It's
awesome.
Yeah.
I love the description. They're the most creative stories I've ever heard, and they're fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, DMT scares me a little because I'm also a believer in the spiritual aspect of stuff. And like, if you look at, so DMT is the same thing. DMT is in ayahuasca, but the traditional way of creating ayahuasca is with using one vine that has the DMT in it, and the other vine they call the protector vine. That is pharmacologically, I think you need them both for your body to be able to process the DMT from the other vine. But in the native cultures, they just knew it as the second vine protected you from the negative spirits. And like with all things with modern Western humans, we somehow figured out how to strip out the DMT where people can smoke it without that protective force in there. And that like worries me. I think people might be, potentially could be interacting with demons or Jinn or something.
I've heard versions of it where you can produce, your body does produce DMT naturally if you're able to, command your body to do so.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were talking about last time, that like, I remember when I was a little kid being able to basically kind of make myself trip when I wanted to. And yeah, that would make sense if
I've
got
heard of
DMT
it like through
in your
breathing,
brain already.
breathing and compression techniques and that, to be able to set off a trip, basically, and your body produces the DMT. That's interesting. I mean, the problem is that the one thing I would have is like, I would worry just a little bit about, am I coming back? Like,
well, yeah, or like that guy's story, if that actually happened to him the way he's describing, I mean, he thought he was there for like 10, 15 years or something, completely forgot about this life. Like, what if you smoke DMT, then you wake up in this other life, live there for 15 years, and it's going so much better. You're just kicking ass in every aspect. And then you come back into this one and you're like, son of a bitch, I got to pay a mortgage. I'm not extremely wealthy. Like, my wife's mad at me because I left dishes in the sink.
Maybe it's just like changing channels on a TV.
Yeah.
But that other channel only lasts for so long. And then you got to deal with, you can't get it back. You start flipping through like a maniac and it's not there anymore.
And that's sort of depressing, unless that's all an indication that what if it just goes on forever, everything, and infinitely?
Well,
so
it would
then
make
you get
sense
multiple.
That it would.
Then you get.
So I don't get depressed about that. I would just. All right, so that's part of the rules of this game. Goes on forever.
I'm just getting depressed if that from that guy, like the way he described it, where he had his perfect life.
But what that guy doesn't realize is that in this life, he's one day away from meeting a girl who he likes even more than, what was her name, Cleo? I think so. Yeah. So it's not guaranteed that he's going to suck the entire time. Just got to move on.
True. Yeah. Well, his name was Billy. Freddie says you got to move on.
Yeah, and Billy, what if she ended up the next day before you dipped out, that she ended up being a Russian spy and was going to execute you? You don't know. You're just assuming that it was all good over there and all bad over here. So.
Yep. So suck it up, Billy. Jesus. All right. on to the next call. And this call is from Sakib in Oregon. Well, talking about something that happened in Oregon, and it's a near-death experience he had.
Oh, all right.
Interested to hear. What do you think, Freddie?
Yeah.
Here we go.
My name's Sakib, and I'm going to tell you a story about my near-death experience in 1996 that a lot of people either find reassuring or some people find it disturbing. So I was heading south on the Pacific Coast Highway from Portland, headed towards Northern California on my motorcycle, and got hit by a truck. It was a pretty bad wreck. That stretch of the Pacific Coast Highway is incredibly beautiful, with lots of redwood trees and mountains leading to cliffs falling into the Pacific Ocean. And so it's not uncommon that drivers get distracted. And that's what happened in my case. The pickup driver got distracted and veered into my lane and crashed into my bike and catapulted me off of the bike and over the guardrail. Luckily for me, I guess luckily is that it wasn't a drop all the way down under rocks or into the ocean. It was actually like a 70-degree slope that I kind of bounced and rolled down for about 50 meters before I landed on this little stretch of beach close to the ocean. And it did knock me out, immediately knocked me unconscious and broke 32 bones on the way down, giving me a punctured lung and internal bleeding. Luckily, the pickup driver was able to contact emergency services, and they got there quickly and airlifted me back out of to the Portland hospital. And that's where I had the near-death experiences in the emergency room as they were working on me. My heart actually stopped for 7 minutes, and I felt my I guess, soul, but me, I was sort of lifted up out of my body and was able to look down and see the doctors and nurses working on me, but it was like I almost didn't care. I felt really good overall and very comfortable, and I was more curious just watching them than panicked or anything like that. Definitely didn't feel any pain. The part of the near-death experience that most people find troubling is what came next. I found that I could move anywhere in the hospital just by kind of putting my attention there. As I started to do that, I started to move around out of the emergency room down the hallway. I started to notice most human beings have another entity near them. And so none of the people in the hospital could see me or noticed me as I moved past them, but the entities traveling with them could. They definitely followed me with their gaze. And what I mean by entities is there were two types. There was a very light-based kind of positive energy thing that would be close to some people, and it seemed kind of reassuring and good and positive. But then with other people, it seemed there was a very dark, shadowy kind of thing, creature that was nearby them, following them, traveling with them, and it looked like oftentimes whispering in their ear. And so that's the part that tends to trouble a lot of people. Overall, I found the experience to be very reassuring. I was sucked back into my body once they had restarted my heart and then had to deal with all the pain and all of that. But when I was in the near-death experience, it was completely comfortable and very pleasant and felt completely natural and real. But I think people should know that what I saw, those two different types of entities, I don't know exactly what it means, but it's, it's good to know that there might be those negative forces out there that we can't see interacting with us. So anyway, that's my story, and hopefully it helps somebody. Thank you.
So I think that's the Jinn. What do you see?
Yeah, that's from what we were talking about in the last episode, is that, maybe the dimensions or the frequencies that you can see at a different level. There's a bunch of stuff existing or that you can't see in our physical forms the way we are now, or perceive in our physical, but they're there the whole time. I find it interesting, the dark and light versions of the things, how he's describing, which is, it's just interesting how we attach an emotion to what is considered light or what is considered dark.
Yeah.
Because actually light isn't even light itself. It's when we see reflections of light. We don't
Yeah.
see the actual
Yeah.
light. So it's, so I'm trying to perceive it through that
Yeah.
sentence. What do these light beings look like if all we see in our version of things is light reflected off of something.
Yeah. Some of that, though, yeah, it's hard to look at anything like that when you're talking about a completely different realm
Yeah.
to attach it to material, the physics we know here.
Yeah.
So that's where because that's where I always get you can get your brain in knots thinking about well, how do you actually see or hear anything as a soul? Why would you have a physical, why would you see,
Well,
if you were in the form of a soul, it seems like you would be doing something other than just seeing it the way we know it.
right.
Because you wouldn't have eyeballs, really.
Right. But
or
and that's
ears.
assuming that we
Yeah.
actually need these eyeballs to see.
Yeah, that's what
To
I mean.
perceive.
It's
It's like, what if we're wearing, a VR headset as a soul, like right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
and you can see your arms. It
Yeah.
looks like point of view that you would see in a video game. You
Yeah.
see your arms, you see your legs, you see your, people across from you, but you don't really, see through your eyes. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem. I mean, I guess if you close your eyelids,
Yeah.
that has, but it's, I don't know. You're like,
it's weird in any way again, I believe there is this next realm,
yeah,
but then it's very hard to equate that, where do the physics from this world stop? Why would you be able to move through walls, but you're still restrained in a location? How would you, how can you hear and see, even though you don't have eyeballs and ears?
well,
I don't know. It's weird. It's just.
I just thought of an explanation that I heard that so basically you think that you are this avatar that is doing these things, saying these things, and reacting to this life.
Yeah.
Where you're actually the thing behind the avatar that is just observing it.
Yeah.
Like,
that's with a lot of
you're not
Eastern-
even saying the
Yeah.
words you think you're saying. You're the thing behind watching.
You're the observer.
watching the
Yeah.
character of you
Yeah.
say the word.
That's a lot of Eastern traditions.
Yeah.
Focus on that. And meditation, where you actually learn to watch your own thoughts, and then you become aware that you are not your thoughts and you are different.
In that version of it,
Yeah.
you could see and hear because you're
And it-
still the thing seeing
Yeah.
the movie play out.
And it could be also that the aspects sort of go into the dream world, that
Mhm.
if you're having a near-death experience or you're crossing over, that it's actually way more different than even that guy or anyone describes. But
Yeah.
once you're coming back, you've got to frame it.
You gotta frame it somehow.
Some ways that can be conveyed.
Yeah.
And that's where your brain starts to put it together into words that other humans will get.
Well, it has to reach it for straws with things that it has come in contact or heard about before in order to quantify what it's seeing.
And that's where it's pretty interesting with near-death experiences is most of them, they're pretty consistent across the globe. All cultures and geographic areas seem to have them.
Mm-hmm.
But then they are specific to what people convey they see. Most often reflects what their beliefs were in their life, especially in regards to religious deities, or somebody that is Catholic is going to see a Catholic saint or Saint Peter, if that's what they believe, is reality.
Yeah.
Whereas Muslim might see Prophet Muhammad, or various or tribes person in another country will see whatever their belief is. And so there's two ways to look at that. That's your psychology, just, making sense of it, your human brain in the way you can. Or there's some people that believe that the same way that all religions are part of one truth, and God gave the different avenues for people, different types of people to find him.
Mhm.
Basically, the religion that, gives them the path to God.
Mhm.
And that one truth then is making it easier for you, is meeting you halfway. Like whatever you believed
Well,
is like
you get
Jesus
what
will
you
show
asked
up.
for.
Yeah, if you believe in Jesus, Jesus will show up.
Right.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to hell, you're
Yeah.
going to experience hell. That
Well,
type
and
of-
that's the interesting thing is there are the majority of near-death experience, and there's something like 250,000 a year in the U.S. alone. It's a lot of people that actually, more than you would probably think, that have near-death experiences or crossing over experiences and coming back. And it's I think it's something like around 70% of them
Mhm.
are all good experiences, but then there's like 20 to 30% that do come back and say, oh, holy crap, that was not good. Like that was, and lots of times though it does have a beneficial effect on the person. They get they're like, holy crap, I got to take my life and treating people well more seriously.
Like
and
Ebenezer Scrooge?
yeah, kind of yep. Oh no, they got Scrooged.
Yeah, it makes sense. It seems like, you're going to get what you ask for one way or another, or to see or experience, maybe in this life and after.
Yeah.
You're just the canvas is just painting you the story you want to experience.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it all comes down to free will. So,
yes.
Yeah. So whether that's you creating the situation to give yourself the most free will, or it's something else that created you to choose your path, but there's it somehow comes down to what you choose.
Yes.
Always dictates then what you're going to get.
Yes. And then perspective, and then your own perspective, and that you can change that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
From one time, 1 year to another year, you can have a totally different perspective and then start experiencing that new perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. You've always got the chance to choose again, which is awesome. All right. On to call 3, FCAT. And this is getting a little more grounded
Okay.
than our first 2 calls that kind of got into the existential nature of reality. This is going to be Rebecca, who's got a story from what occurred to her on the Appalachian Trail a few years ago. And I am calling this story Frog Medicine.
My crazy story is from the Appalachian Trail. If you've never backpacked it before, it's about 2,000 miles and goes all the way from northern Georgia up into the very northeasternmost part of the United States, and some people hike the entire thing with backpacks. Being out there for I think it takes them 6 months total to do it, which is absolutely crazy. Me and my girlfriends, we didn't, and by the way, my name is Rebecca. Sorry about that. Me and my girlfriends were just planning on being out for a month, and you meet all kinds of crazy people out on the trail. As far as not crazy bad, necessarily, although you can meet those as well, but just all kinds of casts of characters and interesting people that you come across, other backpackers, and actually camps of people, and just all kinds of interesting stuff. One of the days that we were out there, I ended up spraining my ankle really bad. And so we had 50-pound packs that each of us were carrying. And after trying to go for a couple hours, I just kept on limping more and more. And the pack was getting heavier and heavier, digging into my shoulders. And eventually I gave up and told my girlfriends that I had to sit down. And I took my pack off, sat on a log, and took my shoe off to look at my ankle, which was, once I took my sock off, I realized it was like the size of a softball. It was really swollen and really painful and red. And then the crazy part happens when we start hearing what sounds like flutes and maybe a tambourine up somewhere up on the trail heading towards us. And at first we're all kind of like looking at each other laughing because we don't even know why there would be people out in the woods playing flutes and tambourines, but eventually it does it gets nearer to us, and around the corner comes a group of 4 or 5 people that were kind of look like they had been playing flutes and tambourines on the Appalachian Trail since the 60s. Were all a bunch of elderly, kind of hippie-looking people that seemed to be having a good time, sort of hiking and skipping along and multicolored but tattered clothing and playing a couple of flutes, and one guy had a tambourine. The most interesting character, though, was the oldest guy who had long gray hair, almost like a wizard, long beard, and he was carrying a frog. I don't know much about frogs, but he had, it was a huge frog, and he was carrying it with both hands. That's how big it was. And as they were passing, smiling, nodding, playing their music, and past us, the oldest guy, when the frog noticed my ankle and me rubbing my ankle, and basically handed the frog to one of his friends, and then knelt down and told me, "Don't worry, darling, I'll fix this quickly." And then before I can tell him no, but I didn't want him touching my ankle with his gross frog hands, he did exactly that. He put his hands on my swollen ankle, and it felt pretty gross and slimy at first, but then quickly, as he was mumbling some things, my ankle started to feel better, less painful and less sore, even though it was still swollen. And he did that, mumbling and sort of pressing gently with his slimy frog hands on my ankle for probably about 30 seconds. Then he stood up, winked at me, and they started skipping down on the away on the trail, playing their music. And all right, so me and my girlfriends all look at each other and just start giggling, dying, laughing. But what's crazy is then my ankle, over the next hour or two, the swelling completely went down and was completely better. And I don't know if he was like, I've heard stories about like Appalachian medicine men kind of thing. I'd live out there. I don't know if he was dad or if it was the frog has some sort of medicinal use to it or something, or if it was just coincidence. But that's my crazy story, and hope you guys like it. Thanks.
There's a lot of weird shit going on out there, Freddie.
Yeah, frog ooze.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. I swear I thought somebody was going to lick the frog. I was waiting for that to happen, and it didn't.
Yeah.
In the story.
It just healed her ankle. Just reduced some swelling. That actually doesn't sound that improbable.
No.
That you might have some frog ooze that
Well, I don't
reduces...
even think it has anything to do with the frog. I think the guy is just a healer, and he healed her.
Yeah.
And he was just happened to be carrying a frog.
Yeah.
Right? I mean...
Well, that's true. Yeah, he didn't say it was the frog.
He didn't rub her with the frog, right?
Yeah, no. He just
happened to have a pet frog.
Yeah.
And then saw her ankle was in need of healing, and he healed it with his froggy hands because of his pet frog.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we were just, trying to inject the frog ooze in there.
Yeah, well, the frog's kind of a big
catalyst.
Yeah, just picturing a guy carrying a big enough frog that it takes 2 hands, it kind of draws your attention. Whether or not, that actually...
Well, and he's singing music, or he's playing
music?
music?
It sounded like they were just a bunch of old hippies.
Like gypsies.
Yeah. The interesting thing is I've never been on the Appalachian Trail, but I've heard it's crazy how many like people are out there that live up and down the Appalachian Trail. I've done a good bit of backpacking but not on the Appalachian Trail. But like me and one of my brothers did a stretch of the Pacific Coast Trail that's out in California.
Yeah.
And that, which isn't supposedly nearly as weird as the Appalachian Trail, you still come across, like, I remember, because we were about 40 miles out in the woods, 40 miles away from the nearest road.
Wow.
Or so you're really out there. And just backpacking, for days, traveling, walking through the woods. And for long times, you'll never come across somebody. But then there's like an area where there were a bunch of natural hot springs.
Yeah.
And like, so you think like you've been out hiking to these hot springs and you think, oh, this is going to be great. Gonna get to be in the hot springs, like out here with nature, solitude. Now there's some fat, naked hippie dude that had just set up camp like next to the hot springs and was living out there. Just completely ruins the vibe. You're just like, I'm in the most beautiful area in the world, but I gotta deal with Jerome or whatever that's been living out here since 1980.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are interesting characters that live out on some of those trails.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard about the Appalachian Trail is it's definitely some strange people. And then when I was doing research on just the Appalachian area itself is pretty fascinating with like, medicine. Yeah. Disappearances.
Yep.
Yep. Disappearances but like actually having folk healing.
Isn't that where the blue people are?
Yeah, the moon people.
Is that they're called moon people?
Yeah, I think they're moon-eyed people.
The blue skin.
I think those are the same people. They were like the people that the Native Americans described as having lived there before them, that lived in the caves.
No, I think this is more recent.
Oh.
Like enough to be on a TV show, like got interviewed like on Phil Donahue or one of those.
A blue person?
Blue. They're blue from what they eat, or so their skin turns blue.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking. No, that's from colloidal silver.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the stuff that I use
but
sometimes.
Yeah, but they take so much of it.
Yeah, the guy that turned himself into a Smurf.
But I swear I thought the connection was that they were living in the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, maybe.
Also,
that would make sense. I could see somebody living in the Appalachian
I was
Mountains.
referencing the blue people.
I don't know if that's necessarily like part of the Appalachian culture. That might just be that guy happens to live in Appalachia.
Family.
Yeah, and they
like
just all
blue.
way overdosed on silver. Yeah, that guy, seeing that guy, because I believe the colloidal silver works for some stuff, especially like bacterial infections, and but I was scared to death of using that stuff for like
because of that guy. Well, at the same time, you have to put it through the filter of I saw it on TV, so he could have easily just been painted up blue and went out on the show and talked about it. So, and I don't, but apparently they are a thing. Like from what I looked into, and they, from multiple internet sources, and they have some sort of a history of. In the family that they've acquired this blue skin, so it wasn't just one show. A little effort would have had to go into creating that character.
Well, I know the Appalachians have a lot of weird history from everything from folk magic and because they're so isolated. Yeah, and there's also like the legends of hill people that basically live out there like completely isolated from society, which probably. Even on the most mundane level has some truth to it from the moonshining from Prohibition is that was where a lot of moonshining went on. And so there'd be people. I just heard
an interesting theory on the Prohibition that they didn't take it away because it was bad for you for drinking. It was because too many people were running cars and generators and all this important infrastructure stuff on alcohol that they make themselves by boiling whatever, potatoes and stuff. and therefore the government doesn't have control over you.
So they made
because
it
you're
illegal
making your own fuel
till the car companies could catch up and make it where that
right.
didn't work.
It was all about commerce and having their control over the industry.
Yeah.
So they they called it for your safety and alcohol, but it wasn't that. It was because they were running too much machinery and they didn't need you to help them with your oil, with your petroleum.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of? I was looking at the Appalachian stuff for stuff that could be real, and both of these things I know have some legitimacy to them. Have you ever heard of water dowsing?
Yeah, wait, is it like 2 rods and you hold them
and they can find water underground? I think that started in Appalachia. It was considered like folk magic, but it works.
Yeah, it's like 2 L-shaped metal rods, and then they of wander around in your hand.
And they intersect when you're over water.
Yeah, when you're over water. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I could totally...
And there's also a thing like my dad for a while owned orange groves.
Oh,
and
cool.
so it's super important to know when freezes are coming. And guard against them, or to at least, know to harvest the fruit before the freeze if you can.
Yeah.
He said, and I remember when I was a kid, him talking about this, he would look, and my father was a very analytical guy, extremely intelligent, well-read. He trusted the Farmer's Almanac to predict when freezes were coming, because some of the older farmers told him that would work way better than any modern meteorological stuff.
Yeah.
And so there were several freezes that he made the right decisions because of the Farmer's Almanac. And that, I think, comes out of the Appalachian area, that it's been the same thing. Like, you can buy a Farmer's Almanac right now that will predict next year's weather. And it's, I think, the same family that's been doing it from that area, passed down for like a couple hundred years or something.
Oh.
And nobody knows exactly how they do it, but it's based on a lot of nature, observing bird patterns.
And I'm going to take just a ballpark out of there with zero looking into this, that it's based on astrology somehow.
It might have something. I know it has patterns in nature.
Yeah.
A lot. They do a lot of observing stuff that the ants went around the tree clockwise instead of counterclockwise. That means you got to get ready for rain or something, like that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But it could definitely have to do with astrology as well. But it's interesting.
Type of weird, really mathematical, something to do with the stars. And, I don't know astrology, so I'm going to total butcher that. But I bet you somewhere in there's the answers in the stars somehow, and they figured it out.
Well, I think there's something to astrology, definitely. But everything, the actual, religion, anything that is probably real but complex, modern society boils it down to the stupidest version. That's what gets publicized.
Yep.
And then everybody argues over that really stupid version. So everybody argues over the 1 paragraph horoscope in a paper as to whether or not astrology exists. And that's complete bullshit, just written by somebody to make a buck. But it has nothing to do with actual astrology, because it would sort of make sense if you think about it from the stars and planets all interacting on, if you were, say, your DNA at the time of conception depends on all of the same planetary forces, the same way with tides and weather patterns that can be influenced by planetary patterns and gravitational pulls. That could all have an effect on how your DNA aligns or something, or chromosomes, that we don't know exactly how it works, but subtle shifts that maybe you're always going to get your DNA from your parents, obviously, but then what parts of that are more predominant, it could depend on what planet is pulling on you at the time of conception.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely interesting to delve into in the non-stupid way,
like with
You know.
everything. It's it can't. But it's that was why I remember the whole. You remember the Mayan calendar world coming to an end?
Yeah,
thing?
2012.
Yeah, and you realize that the Mayans never said the world was coming to an end. They completely, but
Their calendar just ended.
Yeah, it ended. It indicated a shift into a new new time, basically, a new age.
Yeah.
Which arguably, if you look at what's changed since 2012, it was probably pretty damn accurate.
It is.
But like everybody in the mainstream press and everyone who didn't bother to look into it, they described it as the world coming to an end. And I remember people like just laughing off, like, "Oh, we're
tickets."
Yeah, and we're still here the day after dumb Mayans."
Yeah.
Like,
but
that was not what they said.
I'm a big proponent of this 13-month calendar. It makes so much more sense.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Every month is 28 days long, and it matches up with the moon cycles, which also match up with female cycles. And then you have one day, and then it restarts, and it makes and here's the funny thing, Jim. If you look at the names of the months, October
they all make more sense.
is the 8th month, September being the 9th. So it kind of. I'm like, well, that's a weird coincidence.
Yeah. And there was historical, like, there were cultures
I think
that
there
had
was.
a 13.
13-month
I'm
calendar.
pretty sure there was.
So, I'm putting...
That sounds like something that, a couple of churches and governments got together and said, no...
Yeah,
we're going to take a month out to screw everybody over.
Well, there's a bunch of calendars, like there's Gregorian, the Julian, the moon calendars, but I like the turtle one, the one that's on the turtle back.
Have you ever heard much of, we haven't got the time to go into, nor do I have the knowledge to really dive into it deeply, but about the French Revolution, speaking of calendars?
No.
The French Revolution happened shortly after the American Revolution, like 10 years later.
Oh,
and that was
cycle.
where, but it's a great example of sort of how, all right, so lots of times
that was
people
1777.
No, 1787, like 10 years after our revolution.
Okay,
and so it's a great example of when people think that all you need is reason, like especially atheists or people on the far left woke spectrum, where they act like there's a level of just being rational and then the world will all function. The French Revolution was probably one of the only revolutions that in history where the group overthrowing the government was trying to usher in exactly that. An age based on strictly reason, like no God involved, strictly rational. They redid the calendar to make it way more rationally structured. They made all these steps that, like, if you were wanting analytical, logical changes at the onset, they all sort of made sense. But the twist of the whole story is, I think the revolution went on for like a decade, and they all slaughtered each other over and over. It was complete anarchy. They could never. It was just one group overthrowing another group, killing. It was, and I forget what they called it, but it was when the guillotine became fashionable or popular because of how many heads were cut off. And the guy Robespierre, who started he was eventually beheaded. It was like the completely most irrational, emotional, directionless revolution that's ever existed. And it was all based off of trying to make a more rational society. Just ate itself.
I thought Obama ordered like 30,000 guillotines for FEMA.
Yeah.
Maybe we're back in one of these cycles again.
Wow.
We're going to get some heads rolling.
Why guillotines?
Good question. For emergency management,
so much more,
and a bunch of coffins too.
Yeah,
like a preponderance of amount of coffins.
That seems like if you're gonna kill a lot of people nowadays, there'd be so many
people just happen to die or lose their head by accidentally placing it in a guillotine.
I think if anybody needs to get assassinated, like Putin is by far the best.
Okay, why?
Because he's just very efficient. He's not like, he wouldn't do like a guillotine, a big show. He would just like have somebody run up and like tie a grenade around your head, blow you up.
Wait, so back up. So Putin is the what are you stating?
I'm saying the guillotine seems very inefficient.
Inefficient.
and
Oh,
kinda
okay.
showy.
As far as
Yeah.
yeah.
I was just thinking from the perspective of if you were a world leader trying to be a tyrant and wanted to kill a bunch of people,
Yeah.
Putin probably has the best.
Well, I
track
think it would
record.
be. I think there's an amount of showmanship that goes in with the guillotine because it's sort of a
Oh,
deterrent.
and you're saying they want the showman. I was just thinking in a manner
because
of, my God, that's
you're
inefficient.
just like all of a sudden, everybody who subscribed to Time Magazine is a terrorist.
Yeah.
And your first guy who subscribed and was like, I love Time Magazine.
Yeah.
And then his head's rolling out down the road in front of you. There's a little bit of,
Yeah, I
there's
guess
some crazy
I
showmanship
guess
to
you
go
might
with
want
that, and you
the-
might double
yeah.
think
I
your
was
subscription.
I was just thinking efficiency in killing your enemies.
Yeah, but I
that
think
seemed
it's
like a lot of.
it's more
yeah.
efficient in turning the tide
Yeah.
of
It's better marketing.
better marketing and compliance might
Yeah.
increase
Yeah.
with a little bit of showmanship.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just have people disappearing and dying, which is effective because they're not going to be able to speak their mind anymore, but you could also you're missing the point where they change other people's minds.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
the whole thing where you chop off their heads and then you stick them on a stake in front of the White House.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Something,
So yeah,
like up on the fence there.
Mhm.
They stick
Yeah.
up all the Time Magazine subscribers.
I think you're supposed to somewhere in our old writings you're supposed to hang people at the crossroads for everybody to see.
Yeah.
Like hang them up and
That seems
string them up
yeah.
and have everybody, at their waiting at their stop sign, ooh, I don't want to do what that guy did.
Yeah. That's probably a good strategy. All right. So moving into our last call, completely different track from everything else now, Freddie.
Okay.
And so, this is Randolph from, I believe, Great Britain. And I just called this call registration, please.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Randolph, and I would like to enter your storytelling contest, please. No, Maggie. No, I don't want sliced toast. I want a muffin. My name is Randolph, and I would like to enter the storytelling contest, please. I have many, many stories to tell from my time. No, Maggie, no, I don't like Pumpernickel. I just want a muffin, a proper muffin. My name is Randolph, and I have many stories to tell from my time as a lad where I came across a gnome in the garden who offered me a marijuana cigarette. And Maggie, put the sliced pumpernickel down. You have known me for 52 years. I have never liked pumpernickel. Bloody hell. My name is Randolph. I have many stories from my travels abroad, near and far through India and the Orient, where I befriended a majestic yet reclusive mongoose. His glistening bloody hell, Maggie, no, I don't like Pumpernickel. Please, I'm on an important phone call to America. Please go away. Go away now. Go away. Oh, dear God. My name is Randolph, and I would like to register for the storytelling contest, please. Could you please just mail me the registration package for the storytelling contest? Thank you.
Freddie,
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Now, this one doesn't count for last month's contest.
No. This is
I found my
February.
winner.
Yeah, he's good.
He's thorough.
Yeah, he's very thorough.
He's
It's a shame he didn't have his breakfast worked out where we could have heard
I wanted to hear more about the mongoose.
Yeah, the mongoose didn't sound
I forget how he described the mongoose, but
Yeah.
it was enthralling.
Yeah, he said it was majestic yet reclusive. Yeah.
What? And
I'm
he
not
gave
so
him
sure
some
about
marijuana.
Yeah, well, that was the gnome. I'm
Oh,
not sure what
damn.
I was kind of thinking that maybe that was a gardener or something that gave him the
Well,
weed.
I think we're getting into the dementia, blurring of lines.
Yeah.
That maybe his stories are kind of
Yeah.
just meshing together, but still in the
Well,
storytelling, if we
hopefully,
could just
yeah,
do it
he
at
did not-
1 or 2 times speed.
Yeah.
With his next
speed
call,
it,
if
yeah.
he can get
If he
back
just
to the
didn't-
phone.
Yeah, if he didn't start over again every time, that would be the.
Yeah. I mean,
Unfortunately, he didn't leave any contact information. So even if we had a story registration, we wouldn't be able to mail it to him. So, Randolph, if you're listening, just call back in and let us know about the mongoose. You're registered. You're ready to go.
and nobody likes Pumpernickel.
Yeah, nobody.
So he's correct.
No, yeah. And it reminded me a little of I'm not sure why, but why do you think Maggie was doing it on purpose? She probably, if they've been married for 50 years, she knows he doesn't like Pumpernickel.
I'm just wondering if there is a Maggie.
Oh, you're just thinking he was.
Yeah, he might have been having a conversation with some bread.
Well, that could be. Yeah.
I mean, he did start over 9 times.
Yeah.
In the same call. So I don't just assume these things.
Well, hopefully Randolph will call in again now that he's registered. Randolph, you are registered again. Your registration number is 48916-11. Just reference that number, please, when you call in. We'll match it up with your registration, and you can just continue on with the mongoose story.
Yeah, I got to hear about the mongoose.
So I think that's going to do it, Freddie. And just to remind everybody, go to the website if you're listening to this during the first week of February. That's when voting for last month is open. So go to the website, vote for your favorite story. Whoever wins will get $250 and an invitation to come on the show to tell more in depth about their story. And we'll be doing that every month. So for these stories you heard today, you can vote for them starting next month. And same thing, whoever wins will win $250. And so you've still got time for this month. If you've got an awesome story, call it in. It doesn't have to be any genre. It can be paranormal. It can be funny. It can be, just interesting story. It can be you just rambling into the phone as we've just experienced. So, Freddie, you got anything for him?
Get some action. Somebody call him with the hostage situation or demands.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah, all hostage situations, both if you're being held hostage or if you're holding people hostage, definitely please call in. All right, that's going to do it, everybody. Go to yourbesttruestory.com to call in and to vote and answer all your questions. Thanks a lot. Subscribe to the show and check in next time.
Please keep in mind that Your Best True Story podcast cannot attest to the veracity of any story contained within. Therefore, we strongly recommend you seek second opinions before leaving your job to hunt Bigfoot, leaving your spouse because they may be a secret lizard alien, ingesting large amounts of hallucinogenics to travel to other dimensions, robbing banks, summoning demons, or participating in large numbers of orgies. The Your Best True Story podcast takes no responsibility if you are bitten by a werewolf, audited by the IRS, or develop
You got a
eczema.
crazy ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around. Oh, hear the crazy bullshit flying. Just one more, maybe true story before we're dying. Yet be warned, surely not all stories will be treated the same. So don't blame us if your tale about Grandma's cookies is lame. The only way to ensure you could possibly win a buck is to make sure that story of yours don't suck. So instead of yawns, go ahead and tell us how that Bigfoot or werewolf drowned, and then hear the world go breathless when your true story comes around. You'll hear the crazy bullshit flying. Just one more, maybe true story before we're dying. Yet be warned, surely not all stories will be treated the same. So don't blame us if your tale about your grandma's cookies is lame.